Hi.
Awesome. Oh, thank you so much, Sonia, for taking the time.
No problem. I can't wait to learn more about FightPandemic and maybe share more about what IPFS is and how you can maybe use it to build your system on it or through it. And maybe we can see how all of this, we can make all of this work together. I can't wait to learn more about that.
Awesome. Let's do the following. Let's introduce ourselves quickly. So like that, like who we are and what kind of experience we have. Okay, so I'll start. So I'm Manu. I've been working in FightPandemic for about 3 months and a half. I've been working in the tech industry for over 8 years. Before I was doing a lot of growth marketing, product management, and also fundraising. I've been working as well with the, let's say, within the blockchain industry for about 3 years and a half, more or less, 3 years. Before I tokenized some real estate, I'm also part of different DAOs. I'm a member of the Meta Cartel, also one of the founding members of the Meta Game, and also one of the founding members of the marketing DAO, the Ethereum marketing DAO. And yeah, that's pretty much me. Now I pass it on to Matthew.
Thanks, brother. So my name is Matthew Hutchins. I'm currently wearing a lot of hats. So I'm the chair of Blockchain IoT Special Interest Group for IEEE Queensland in Australia for Region 10. I've been doing tech either on the tools or leading projects or delivering projects via a variety of different project management methodologies for approximately 20 years. Most recently of late, I've been completely off the tools, which is really foreign to me, but I'm enjoying the versatility of doing agile project management. So I'm a professional Scrum Master certified from scrum.org. I'm also a certified blockchain architect with Blockchain Training Alliance, and I've gone through a couple of their courses along with Blockchain Essentials from IBM. I would like to work towards being an expert in blockchain. I wouldn't say that I am, because there's just so much to learn and it's just enormous. I love it so much. I wish I had nothing but free time to look at blockchain so that I could understand every intricacy and how it could relate to business and how it can help the planet and humanity. So that's my position. I might hand it off to Lim.
Hi, I'm Lim and I'm a Malaysian. So I just graduated from the course and my final year project is about charity. So it is about the application of blockchain and the utilization of smart contracts. So there's a lot to learn. Thank you.
That's awesome. Nice to meet you all. My name is Sonia, as you can obviously already tell. I've been a developer maybe less than 5 years, but before I was a developer, I was working as a data analyst for a telecommunications company that's based in Africa, MTN. Manu, you might know it if you worked in and around Africa. I worked with them as a data analyst.
One of the investors of Jumia.
Yes, they are. That's absolutely right. They got it, I think, a few years later. But yeah, I worked with MTN Group for about 5 years, doing data analysis with the IT department, working together with the marketing departments. And after, I think after the last year that I was there, I was introduced to Ethereum by a colleague of mine at the developers conference. And that's pretty much where my interest in decentralized systems peaked. And I was drawn into IPFS specifically because when one Benan stood up to give his presentation on why we should decentralize the web, he mentioned that one of the visions for IPFS was to actually become an alternative for HTTP, which is the current messaging protocol, communication protocol layer for the internet. And I thought, okay, that's a grand vision. I should definitely get into that. And that's what I've been doing since then. So I've been contributing to IPFS, writing documentation, building communities in different cities, writing materials just to introduce people to the different technologies that are being built by protocol labs. So that includes IPFS itself, P2P, which is a communication layer that's built on top of, that IPFS is built on top of. Then there's the Filecoin network, and there's so many other different protocols that actually go into IPFS itself. I contribute to sometimes writing code for some of these. There's different kinds of implementations of IPFS. Some are written in Rust, Go, or JS. Sometimes I do not code reviews per se, but I can look at the code and say, oh, okay, maybe I think we can maybe work it in this kind of way. So that's pretty much what I've been doing. But beyond IPFS and the protocol lab stack of technologies itself, I'm also interested in other decentralized protocols. So I've worked with Ethereum. I've also worked with VeChain. I think the latest that I've worked on is Near Protocol. Near Protocol is a new protocol that's come onto the market, and just to test it out, what I tend to do is I try to build an application, a decentralized application on each of these protocols. And with Near, I was able to build a decentralized messaging platform. I thought that was pretty interesting, but because I cannot usually work on each of the projects that I create, I actually tend to pass them off to the protocols that build to the protocol owners to say, hey, it's something that I started. If you can get a team to work on this, I think it would be something amazing. So today I think I'll be taking you through a brief introduction of what IPFS is, and maybe some of the ways that I think you can use it for your project.
Amazing. Federica, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Italian and I live in Germany mostly. I'm interested mostly in BI, and I wanted to join to see what's going on and learn something.
Yeah, thank you for being here, Fede. Yeah, you're always welcome to learn. All right. So let me introduce you, Sonia, to what we've been working on and to the idea itself and how it has developed. So just for you to know, like, this idea started just after I had coronavirus. I basically identify an issue within my community, within Spain. I was living here in Barcelona, in Berlin. And then I went to a conference, the ETHCC conference in Paris. And then in that conference, basically I got the coronavirus, and like 50 or 60% of the attendees of the Ethereum community conference got the coronavirus. And that was like at the end of February. And after that, I came to Barcelona, and that was like my new city. I just arrived, and I got the coronavirus immediately. And obviously I didn't know anyone in this city. And it was super hard for me because all the hospitals, all the clinics, they were completely full. Like, no one wanted to take me, and no one wanted to even see, check what I had. And I knew that I had corona just because the people that were staying with me back in Paris, they were tested, and they were in America and they were tested and they had it and blah, blah, blah. So that's how I know that I have it. And I spent like 3 weeks in my home, and no one wanted to take care of me. And during that time, obviously I was super stressed. I wanted to find out like how I could get help. How could I get groceries? How could I get medicine and stuff? And I realized that there were a lot of groups forming up in Spain, in different regions. So there were like Telegram groups and Telegram groups within my community. So I joined those Telegram groups or those Facebook groups. And then I realized that it was very, very difficult to find people that could help me, because those platforms like Telegram or Facebook or any of this, let's say, social media platforms are not made for that. You know, that they are a feed. So like if you want to find someone that can fit your need, you actually need to read the whole feed. So it's really painful. It's really painful to, let's say, to find someone that can match your need. So then I said, okay, how can I help the world with this issue? And actually I started working with the guys from Aragon, and we created something that is called Help DAO. And the Help DAO was just basically a DAO that was enabling community managers, or let's say, or people that wanted to create some mutual aid groups to pool some funds, and then those funds pass it on to volunteers. And then basically those volunteers will buy the groceries or will buy whatever is needed for the people that were needing help. And that was basically the idea. But then I realized that Help DAO was, let's say, was going to have an issue, and the issue was how to find the people to use the DAO. And I say, okay, that's the main issue. The main issue is how, like, the technology is out there. There's Aragon, there's DAO Stack, there are so many DAOs, so people can self-organize. But how do we get them to use it? Then I say, okay, the main issue is that the matchmaking between the people that need help and the people that can provide help is not possible yet. It's not possible yet with the current platforms that we have. So first we need to create a platform for doing the matchmaking. And then we can enable DAOs, you know, or enable communities to pool money together and to decide how they spend that money and so on. So that's pretty much how the project started, just by identifying that the matchmaking was the missing piece, right? So then, obviously the matchmaking, the idea was just to create a board and that people match with each other by just doing quick search and by creating tags with the post. And also, like, instead of only having tags with the post, like, I don't know if you've seen the product yet, but in each post you have tags like you have needs like well-being, or you have needs like let's say groceries, or you have needs in terms of education or whatever. So you can find any let's say any type of help within the platform. But the idea has been even evolving more and more. So right now, what we want to do is to even do a matchmaking using some kind of machine learning by understanding your profile or the profile of the people that are providing help, and by understanding the problem, and basically enabling that matchmaking. However, an important thing to mention is that obviously, in order to do the matchmaking with machine learning, there's data needed, right? So at the beginning is basically organically. So we're just allowing people like in Reddit, just to come in and check the post. And if they want to comment or if they want to interact with the post, then they need to sign up and log in and blah, blah, blah. So the information is always there for free, or let's say available. It's not that we charge any money, but when I say for free, I mean, you don't need to have a transaction, a digital transaction, right? You don't need to sign up or anything. So yeah, so that's why I'm saying, like, the whole idea has been evolving. And at the very beginning, I didn't even think about you know, like integrating DAOs or anything, because I only realized that the main issue was the matchmaking. And then obviously, once we start developing the product, we identify that not only individuals are the ones that need help, but also organizations need help, right? And when we identify the organizations need help, that meant that mutual aid groups needed help. That meant that hospitals needed help, or even governments themselves, they needed help. So we also identified that probably those organizations want to have their own health board. They want to probably have their own feed, right? Internal feed. So might not be necessarily public feed or public health board. So then I said to myself, okay, here is where the DAO model can fit in. Once you create the organization, then you can have some DAO templates and basically, you know, have some sort of governance models for these community managers. Then I've been reading a lot about what's happening with Reddit and what's happening with Facebook. I don't know if you're aware that Reddit is having like a strike currently, like a lot of moderators on Reddit. Yeah, a lot of moderators on Reddit, they decided to basically put the subreddits into private mode. So basically Reddit has been losing a lot of traffic. They were like between the top 10 platforms that were receiving the most amount of traffic. And right now they're like number 20. So like only in 2 weeks. And they're going down just because the moderators decided to stop, let's say, not to stop, but to fight against Reddit a little bit, because they're not receiving any monetary value. And, you know, the incentives are completely misaligned. So there's all these moderators that are taking care of all these subreddits, but Reddit, the organization, is the one that is basically getting the incentive called cash, right? So then I started to think, well, the main issue is that there's no way currently to actually include those people that are managing those communities. And that's why I said, well, we definitely need to enable communities to self-manage and to have some incentive mechanisms by themselves that they choose. And we have to enable them different type of modules, like voting modules, and that they can decide what type of voting they have. If it's one person, one vote. But if there's one person, one vote, then you need to have another piece of the puzzle, which is IV, right? So there are so many of the pieces of the puzzle that I identify that are necessary in order to have like this ecosystem or this platform, this social media platform that could be somehow federated. It's not like decentralized, it's like federated, right? So there are like different DAOs within a major DAO maybe. So it's like a DAO of DAOs. And that's basically what I've been thinking of. And it might sound a little bit utopian, but I've been reading a lot, and I'm seeing that the future of platforms are community-owned platforms, and obviously, you know, what better example than Ethereum and Network and Bitcoin? There are networks that are owned by the community, right? And obviously, another thing that I identify is that the code is not what is really important. What is really important is the community itself. You know, code can be forked and code can be copied, or you can just recreate the new platform from the very beginning. So what I've been focusing most of my time in is to create the community that is helping each other out within FightPandemics, right? That is the first community that is creating this platform. But another thing that I identify is that the problem that I was trying to solve for the world was the problem that we had internally within FightPandemics. So there are so many people willing to help, but they don't know where to start. And that's where the matchmaking makes sense, you know? Because yeah, there are so many resources in the world. There are so many people willing to give, but they don't know where to start, and they don't want to put time and effort into finding where they can fit in. And yeah, that's basically the idea. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
No, absolutely. I like the idea of matchmaking, as in trying to match the people who need a certain kind of help with the people who can offer the type of help that they're looking for. I think that will be very crucial in the way the whole platform will eventually run and how it will eventually succeed. Because if you can get the accuracy of the matchmaking process to at least 85%, then you'll have 85% satisfactory rate amongst your users. Which means that you will get more people recommending the platform and you'll get more people getting the help that they need throughout this whole period. So I absolutely love it. So how are you currently doing the matchmaking? Are you going to run it on an algorithm? Is it something that is going to be done manually?
Yeah, so currently, like, let me explain you also how mutual aid groups work. So like that, you have an idea how bad and inefficient how inefficient they work. So usually they have a Google form that is basically making the request, and they have another Google form that is the offer. So what they do, the mutual aid groups, they do is that someone in the background is doing the matchmaking manually. Okay, so that people, they're not even able to find each other. There's someone in the background that is just saying person A can use what person B is offering, and then they do the matchmaking. And this is how it currently works. So we thought, okay, maybe by having a help board, people can start interacting by themselves, right? So you can make a post of the offer or request, and then someone can come in and comment. And then obviously until now, we have the capabilities of just letting users to comment, but we want that the users also can send private message to each other. And, you know, like we want to enable that the users find themselves first, because we don't have the data to do the matchmaking. However, we shouldn't just let the users find themselves, because it's going to be difficult for them. We are probably going to have community managers within FightPandemic's team that are going to help out with the matchmaking. So they'll be studying all the posts that are coming in, and the posts that are coming in terms of requests, and the posts that are coming in terms of offers, and they're going to be trying to do that matchmaking first at the beginning. And as you know, our platform hasn't been launched. We're doing currently a soft launch. So we're interviewing mutual aid groups. We're understanding what are the problems that they're facing. And crazy enough, we have identified that the main problems that mutual aid groups have are governance problems, are transparency problems, are basically the matchmaking is not the major problem. Why? Because it's basically done by volunteers, and they don't have, let's say, that's not like the main issue that they have, because they think that they're running efficiently. However, I don't think that they're doing so, because most of the people that are making offers or requests, they have to spend days in order to receive the request, the offer, I'm sorry. And yeah, that's basically how the system is currently working.
I might add to that as well, because the matchmaking stuff we haven't really talked about in depth, but it is a bit of a hobby of mine, because my partner has got a PhD in data scientist and has built a recommendation engine for, well, that was her thesis anyway. So what we will probably get to, Sonia, I mean, if you're in analytics, you'll understand what I'm talking about. We will probably have to use labeled data and use supervised learning to do, you know, that sort of side things, and maybe have a look at transfer learning from other trained models, etc., and see how we go. But what we definitely need to do is make sure that whatever IPFS model we're doing is going to give us the solid platform for structured data to give us the best percentage chance to have high accuracy for our analytics over the top. So I'm sure you're very well versed in what we're doing there, seeing as that's kind of, I'm going to assume, what you do for a job. But from the DAO perspective, probably extending on what Manu said, and he said it very well. So thank you very much, Manu. What we're trying to do is create a platform that allows people to have control over their own tool sets to automatically provision governance models, and have that structure rolled out immediately in their own kind of community pods, because that will enable people to have accountability for people that are interacting in their own community, mutual aid groups, etc. That's one of the biggest pain points. The pain points are that people can get helpers, but then there's no way of holding them accountable. Or getting the money is not the problem. It's where does that money go? It's governance. It's like we have a resource. That resource wants to help, and then it magically disappears, or something. The outcome is not there because they don't follow through. So what we should be doing, or being able to do, is make that whole process of being able to hold people accountable and providing provenance, transparency, and all those sorts of things completely automatic and user created. So when they go and create their own little community based on, a hotspot or something that's happened and they need help, they should be able to choose what aspects of governance they want to run in the model, and who they want to be involved, what privacy settings they want, all these sorts of things. So they get control of their own little pod, and we give them the framework, the rails, if you will, to create their own train and drive it. So that's kind of how it works. And IPFS, obviously, I mean, it's a no-brainer. It's the way of the future. And I think we're all very grateful that we have your expertise to draw on here, in what you've done. So do you have any questions for us in what we're trying to achieve, or do you think you have enough information?
I think maybe because in the interest of time, maybe what I can do is I can give you a brief introduction to IPFS, maybe give you a brief of how you may use some of these solutions that are available on IPFS and applications that already use IPFS. I went through the Web2 modules document on Notion, and I saw that there's two different applications that you're interested in integrating on the platform. That's Fleek.co and 3box for identity verification. So maybe I could just take you through a brief intro of IPFS, the stack that they use, where you can find some of this where it started documentation, and then I can maybe give you an example of how Fleek can be used for a project like FightPandemic, and then we can, if we still have time after that, we can try to brainstorm how to bring the two technologies together.
Sounds amazing.
Okay, awesome. So let's see if I can share my screen. Manu, are you able to authorize screen
You got
sharing?
it.
Awesome. Okay, so let's do this. Share this. So this is just a brief presentation that I usually share with
We're not able to hear you well, Sonia.
Maybe let's turn off our camera so the connection will be better on Sonia's side.
Yeah, good suggestion.
Okay. Okay. Because I could do that. How's that?
Still a little bit.
Yeah, still breaking up.
Okay. Let me see if I can zoom in.
Yeah, you're breaking up.
Maybe turn off your video also and try this out.
Yeah, that might help.
Do this.
Did you make that avatar?
No, I didn't. Sadly, my graphic design skills are below zero. Okay, how about now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Seems a bit better, yeah.
Awesome, awesome. So I'd like to talk with Juan Bennett, who's the creator of IPFS and the founder of Protocol Labs, say because it pretty much covers the whole reason for the existence of IPFS, which is that the internet has become, you know, humanity's most important technology. We use it for pretty much everything. We use it to shop. We use it to pay our bills. We use it to talk to other people, like we're doing now. And the way that it's currently built, it's prone to a lot of challenges that we tend to like to call problems of centralization, because most of the unit of the internet as we know it today is just a silo of centralized service providers. So you have your big tech companies like Google, like Facebook. They control a huge chunk of most of the internet traffic that is handled every day. And this comes with a lot of challenges that most of us are probably already familiar with. For example, a user's access to any site or any platform is at the mercy of their service provider, for example, or at the mercy of the platform. If they decide to kick you out, there's not very much you can do about this. You were mentioning Reddit in your presentation, Manu, and there's cases where people have been kicked out of Reddit because, again, admission is, what do they call it? Admission here is at the behest of the owners of this platform, so you can't really do anything about it. We also have a case of terms of service or data policies that require people to sign off the usage of their personal data, which is then shared with third parties through marketing contracts, where you find, you know, people sign off all kinds of data without really knowing because they just want access to certain kinds of platforms. It's a big problem that's happening right now with TikTok. It's a whole part of it's part of a discussion that's happening different corners of the web. Okay, what if TikTok was decentralized? Would that make it a better platform, etc? So these are just some of the problems that we have with the structure of the web as it is today. And as you're aware of, if you have ever used if you have ever worked in a database management space or centralized server management space, you'll know that when decentralized servers fail, that the websites and the applications that depend on them also fail. And I think maybe that's why you're considering IPFS as an alternative to AWS. So then how would that work entirely? Well, the move from what we call Web 2, which is the current web structure, into Web 3, which covers a lot of the technologies that you mentioned already, like Ethereum, like IPFS, is because of a general interest in people to get verifiable information out of the web, information that they can trust, information that they can store in trusted ways, and information that can pretty much not be erased, information that does not disappear if the central service that holds them disappears. I mean, what happens if an AWS server that was hosting your data was to go down and they didn't have redundancies and backup and backup, suitable backup? What happens then? So you lose all your user database information, you lose all the other data that you probably had stored on the servers. So that's just some of the things that is driving the move to Web3, which I think I try to cover very well in this slide because it covers the top five, what I call the top five tenets of Web3 itself, which is secure self-publishing, secure communication, secure storage, verifiable transaction, and trustless infrastructure. Now, these tenets are already built on the values of freedoms like freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, user control of their own data, pretty much self-sovereignty for people, organizations, and programs. Say for FightPandemic, in this instance, using IPFS as opposed to centralized server alternatives will then give you the kind of sovereignty that you needed to decide, okay, are we done with this platform? Can we take it off, as opposed to someone else making that decision for you sometime in the future? So then what is IPFS? Well, IPFS is, the simplest way I can describe it is as a synthesis of multiple peer-to-peer systems that are designed to create a distributed content addressable and file sharing and storing protocol. I think that's the easiest way to describe it. Essentially, it makes the web work peer-to-peer. And one of the ways that it does this is through the content addressing model. See, on the traditional web, for example, that is HTTP, content headers indicate the location for the return data. Like you can see in this illustration here, example.com is the location for the return data, buzz.png, while on IPFS, content are identified and returned using their content identifiers, or what we call cryptographic hashes. These hashes are calculated from the content itself, and the resulting value of a cryptographic hash calculation or a cryptographic algorithmic calculation becomes the address of the data itself. As you can see again in this illustration, the address for buzz.png on IPFS is indicated by the address of the content itself, which would be a hash string that looks something like this.
And Sonia,
So
one question.
IPFS, yes.
That's why you said yesterday to me that we should probably use ENS.
Yes, that's why I mentioned it, because while content addressing is amazing because it literally points to the content itself, the results of cryptographic hash calculations is you get a hex that is completely human unreadable string of numbers and letters. So IPFS has a naming service, which is called the Interplanetary Naming Server, but because it is still under heavy development, we are working with ENS, which is the Ethereum name server, which is already out in production mode, and Unstoppable Domains, which provides cryptographic naming services for which provide crypto-based addresses or peer-to-peer addresses, which are really good alternatives for businesses that want to have a name service that they can just point their users to without necessarily giving them a new CID or a new address every time they make a change on their website.
Makes sense.
Yes. So I can actually try to cover some of the sub-protocols that actually power the IPFS network itself, if this is something that you're interested in, or I could just jump a few more steps.
Definitely interested if we have the time.
Okay, awesome. So these sub protocols on the IPFS network, they're responsible for different functionalities within the network. For example, DHTs, or what we call distributed hash tables, these are used on the IPFS network to allow nodes to find other peer network addresses, to keep track of data blocks, and to retrieve objects with keys that are associated with them. So for example, when an object, a file, a website, anything is added on the IPFS network, it gets a cryptographic hash, which is the address of the content itself. DHTs are used to track these addresses, and they're used to keep track of the different blocks that go together with the content itself, and then retrieve them in case someone makes a request for them. Which also builds into what Merkle DAGs are, which are the distributed acyclic graphs, which is essentially a self-verified structure of linked data objects. I know that sounds incredibly difficult, but I can break it down like this. When an object is added on the IPFS network, it is chunked into equal parts, which are usually of the size 256 kilobytes. Say if I uploaded a picture, buzz.png, which was 1 GB, what the cryptographic hashing process will do is that it will chunk my 1 GB file into equal parts of 256 kilobytes, And each of these chunked parts will get an address of their own. And each of these addresses is what forms a Merkle tree or a Merkle DAG. So it's just a tree of linked data objects. The best way that you can look at it is like a tree that has branches that comes off of a root. So the root would be the content itself, and then the branches would be the different chunked parts of it, and they all come together to form what is known as a Merkle tree. Now, how DAGs and DHTs work together is because if you're uploading a very large image, for example, you will get multiple. Actually, you know what? I think the best way to describe this is to show you.
So basically what it does is that it breaks the data into pieces and put it in a record tree.
Yes.
Okay.
I can actually show you because we have a very good DAG illustrator that works wonders. What I'm going to try to do is try to upload an image, anything, a file.
I think that
So this is a DAG builder.
I think that we're still seeing your presentation, not what you're trying to show us.
Yeah, you need to reshare like to a different screen.
See. Okay. Okay, then let me stop that share.
Quick question for you though, Sonia. Does it do a hash of the entire piece? Like, let's say if you have a 1 gig file, does it do a hash of the entire piece and then split it, or does it split it and then do a hash?
Yes. So what I'm gonna try to show you with the DAG builder is how that process all works, and it happens so quickly. It's one of the best things I've ever seen, if you were to ask me. Okay, there we go. All right. I'm gonna try to upload. What should I upload? Okay, let me see a picture. What should I try? Okay, let's see. Okay, I can do a GitHub file, like a README. Let's do a README. There we go. So whatever I upload on the IPFS is stored on the IPFS permanently until the uploader essentially deletes it. And by deleting it, it will just be sent to garbage collection as opposed to actually being outright removed from the network itself. That's one of the things that we call immutability. Okay, so this is what I was referring to when I was referring to the DAG forest or the DAG tree. So what has happened with the file that I have uploaded is it has been chunked into sizes of 512 bytes. But I can increase this size to anything that I choose. This 512 bytes is the automatic size for chunking, and you can choose how many trees you want. I can say 174. It will read the file, and okay, why I'm taking so long? Okay. So all of this are different parts of the same file. So this forms the root of the file itself. And then all these are what we call branches or leaves. They're all equal parts, as you can see down here, 523 bytes. And if you wanted to retrieve this information, what the DHT will do is that it will look for all of these CIDs. You see, they're all very different, all very unique. And then it will give you the final CID, which is the root CID, which you can then use to find the actual document itself when you want it. I think that's the best way I can illustrate DAGs and Merkle trees. Let me see if I can do a new share. And then, okay. And then BitSwap is a BitTorrent inspired protocol. So I can send you a link for the DAG builder so that if you wanted to play around with it, if you wanted to upload multiple files, you can just see how all of that happens automatically on the IPFS network, if that's okay with you.
Yes, please.
Awesome. I'm going to try to run through all of this because I think we have about 15 minutes to go. BitSwap is a BitTorrent inspired protocol, and we use it on IPFS to exchange blocks. So if a peer has a want list or a list of information that it wanted from another peer, and they have a have list or a list of documents or information that they wanted to share with the marketplace, what BitSwap will do is that it will create a place where nodes can exchange information, and that's pretty much how communication happens between nodes on the IPFS network. IPLD is an offshoot of Merkle DAGs in the sense that IPLD, which stands for Interplanetary Linked Data, is just a map of hash-linked data structure, which models its output for a linked object with a data blob, which pretty much includes a link or the hash of the object itself, its size. Essentially, you can build a hash-linked data structure for any kind of information you wanted. So if you wanted to know what's the hash link for example, for website, say if I uploaded a website and you were curious what all the linked information was in that website, you could just run a quick IPLD search and you could find all the different components that actually go to one site or to one object that is loaded on IPFS. IPNS, like I mentioned earlier, is the naming system that is used on IPFS, and we use it to publish human readable names for domains. So it's like the equivalent of DNS for the current web system, and it's currently still under heavy development. I think we will have a working function for this. Okay, it's already working, but it's very slow. So we're trying to optimize it to get to a point where you don't have to wait maybe 5 minutes for your site to load using IPNS. libp2p, which is my favorite, is the networking layer for IPFS. We use it to handle a lot of to move data around within the network. So although it grew out of IPFS, libp2p is now an independent protocol that can be used by any other peer-to-peer network. It's currently being used by the Ethereum network to develop Ethereum 2.0. It's been used by other protocols as well, like Polkadot, I think Cosmos. These are just the ones that I can think of top of my head. And what it is essentially a collection of modules that manage functions like content routing, peer discovery, and different kinds of transport systems. And then file systems. File systems includes two very unique file systems. So you have the mutable file systems, or file systems that can be edited, because on the general IPFS network, files cannot be edited, they cannot be changed, they cannot be moved, they cannot be removed, because anytime we make a change on a file, then a new cryptographic calculation is done and a new content ID is generated. But if you wanted to work with files that you can edit, that you can add more content to, that you can remove content from without changing the CID of the content itself, then you would need to work with what we call MFS, or the mutable file systems. And this provides the unique ability to do what you normally do with file systems on the current web, but on the decentralized web, on the distributed web. There's also the unique file system, which is I like to call it version 0 of the IPLD. because it was from Unix, from the Unix file system, which is just a file system of linking objects to linking objects using their cryptographic hash. And from that system, we started working on IPLD and eventually the Merkle DAG. So all of these systems communicate with one another at all times, and they're pretty much always working synchronously to make the IPFS network work. And currently there's about 2 implementations of IPFS that are available for use. We have Go IPFS, which is at version 0.6.0, and the JS IPFS, which is at version 0.47. We have very regular updates, I think every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks, because we're getting lots of feature requests. We're getting people who are asking for, hey, how about we improve this part of the network? And that's what the team tends to do most of the time. Now, they're written in different languages, they have a lot of parts where they actually share the same features. So when it comes to the protocol itself and the core API, these are written both of these implementations of IPFS. Also, the WebSockets that I used and the peer discovery systems that I used are similar in both of these implementations. And this happens because although there's a lot of parallel development for each of these systems, it was designed this way so that if you're working with JS or Go for your application, you're getting all the features of a full implementation of the IPFS protocol at all times. Now, to get started with Go IPFS, this is just some links that you can use to go to. The easiest thing that we can get started with for FightPandemic would be the Go IPFS HTTP clients. But I had a look at the FightPandemic source code, and I saw that it was heavily built on React and JavaScript. So I would actually recommend using the JS IPFS implementation because it has other features that are currently not available on Go IPFS. For example, the HTTP gateway, which incorporates a lot of service workers so that anyone who connects to your service from the browser is essentially connected to the IPFS network at all times. The HTTP gateway is one of the ways that a lot of people currently use IPFS. In the last 6 months alone, the HTTP gateway has processed about 200 billion data requests, which is amazing. It comes down to about 30 million requests a day. That's how much data is being transmitted over the JS HTTP gateway. Other ways that we can use IPFS is through the browser. You can do quick searches for IPFS addresses on Opera, on MetaMask, and on the Brave browser. You can also use Fleek to pin information on the IPFS network. And like I mentioned earlier, the ENS and Unstoppable Domain services, which actually help give human readable names to the sites that you upload on IPFS. So the ecosystem always growing, and we would absolutely love for FightPandemic to be listed on this slide. Of course, this is just a small overview. It's always growing, and it would be awesome to have you guys here as well. So I would absolutely love to see how we can make that happen. But first off, let's see. Okay. I wanted to show you Fleek. I don't know if you've tried to use Fleek before, but if you haven't, it works much like Netlify, where you just add a site with the source code and it runs the build function for you and it gives you a link to your site. The only difference is, as opposed to hosting on their own dedicated servers, what Fleek does is that it pins whatever site that you're building on the IPFS network so that it can be available immutably and pretty much permanently. So I try to fork the FightPandemic or source code here so that we have something to test this on. I haven't done the test just yet, so I want to try this together to see if it's something that actually works. How much development do you reckon is left on the FightPandemic source code itself?
I think Manu might be having some connectivity issues.
No, it's working.
Okay, no problem. I'm just gonna try to run this. I'll see if it builds. If it builds, amazing. If it doesn't, that's okay too. But I just wanted to show you how simple it was to use services like Fleet, for example. If you wanted to just deploy a site on IPFS. Alternatively, you could get the IPFS desktop application, which is also a very good way for beginners to get started with IPFS. But because we're doing this for a large scale build, I thought, okay, let's try this instead. Triggering build execution. Come on, come on, come on. Oh, okay, I know. It's not gonna build because it has to go into client. It has to cd into client. Okay. Let's see.
So while this is building, Sonia,
Yes.
what do you think would be the best step for us to begin our IPFS journey? So basically with IPFS, you're suggesting that we should use the JS implementation for the additional features, and also because we're building in React. Where should we start with our deployment model?
Absolutely. So I think the first thing that would be okay, the first step maybe we could try, which would be like a low hanging fruit, is maybe try to move the website FightPandemic that is on here. Try to move it, try to host it on IPFS. Is that something we can start with?
Definitely.
Because then it will give you an idea of the kind of mechanics that go into this. And then so when you were describing what you wanted to do with the DAOs in different organizations and federalization, the thing that came to mind was IPFS clusters. And IPFS clusters is essentially a network of private nodes that actually share the same information. The best way, okay, how can I describe it? It's like so nodes currently on IPFS network are public. If you shared any information on IPFS, it would be public information and it would be shared with all the nodes that currently run on the IPFS network. If you created an IPFS cluster, instead, what would happen is only a collection of nodes that would be approved by you, the organization, would be able to join the cluster of your network, and only the nodes that have been approved would be able to share the same information. So it will be like a private network within the IPFS network itself. So that would be my next step. So we could work on a JS HTTP cluster that also works with the HTTP gateway that we talked about. So that would be my best estimation of what I think IPFS would do best for FightPandemic.
Right, so creating an IPFS cluster is essentially like setting up a permissioned blockchain, and we would provision our own nodes around the globe, and we can then share private data or privatized data across those nodes in the cluster.
Exactly. So this information would not be available for other nodes that are currently on IPFS. And I can share with you the kind of clusters that are currently being built on IPFS. There's all kinds of organizations that are using this feature of IPFS to actually run parts of their own organization because, like I mentioned, because some of this information that's shared on IPFS is permanent in nature, it cannot be changed. You can trust that it's the information that you're receiving because if anyone made a change on the information that you were getting, then the CID itself would change, so you would know that this information has been tampered with. And information is only shared once. So if you tampered with, you get a notification that the CID has been changed, and that's how you're able to know, okay, I'm working with verified, trustable information. So if you were doing this within your own IPFS cluster, within your own FightPandemic cluster, then you're able to trust, for example, if you're building an accountability system on top of IPFS, what would happen is once it's been shared within the network, if someone tried to tamper with that information, all the nodes within the network itself would be notified because they would all get a change of CID for that information or for that piece of data.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. How many nodes do we need in order to create an IPFS cluster?
Minimum 2, maximum you choose.
Is there any impact on performance as we scale out through nodes?
No, because then what tends to happen, because all the sub protocols that run IPFS are all built for scalability. So if you're looking at DHTs, if you're looking at the Merkle DAG system, if you're looking at the BitSwap protocol, all of these are built for scalability. And because we're using libp2p, which is being developed on the side for content routing, for peer discovery, for node routing, then you'll find that no matter how much you scale your network, then it doesn't really matter how many nodes you get for your cluster, that the performance will be the same throughout. I can give you an example of Filecoin, which is the biggest network that is being built on IPFS, and it runs on IPFS. It's being built on IPFS, but it can work independent of IPFS because it's been built on an IPFS cluster.
That's very, very interesting. Is it based on X509 certificates as well in terms of the permission?
Sorry, could you say that again?
So I'm gonna assume that it's based on CA root certificates on the nodes. Is that correct?
I'm not sure about that. I would have to check.
Okay, it might be a little bit below the hood. One question just around IPFS in general. So if we were to put the FightPandemic's website on IPFS, does that have any associated cost at the moment?
No. What would cost you something was if you were interested in getting an ENS name for it or an unstoppable domain name for it, or let me just say a crypto-based naming service. So if you were to use ENS or unstoppable domains to give it a human readable name, that would cost something. I think the minimum cost on unstoppable domains is $40, and then it spans out based on the uniqueness of the name. And then on Ethereum, I think it's based on a voting mechanism. So you would have to submit the name that you wanted for your Ether address.
Yeah, you've got to bid on it.
Sorry?
You have to bid, so you have to like sort of try.
Yeah, exactly. So you bid, people try to vote on it, and then if you win the bid, then the name is yours for a year, and then which is different. What I prefer with unstoppable domains, one is not just that it's built on top of IPFS, it's that it works, it functions as a crypto wallet as well. So if you gave people the name FightPandemics.zil, then they can use that to send you crypto donations without necessarily you having to give them a crypto wallet, because it can send crypto donations or crypto income to any wallet that you choose. So you can get donations in Bitcoin, Ethereum, and pretty much any other cryptocurrency that you wanted. So that's one aspect of it that I absolutely love.
So it's built on Zilliqa, is that correct?
No, it's built on IPFS.
No, sorry, the wallet.
Oh yes, no, I think they have multiple wallet integrations, but then what they use is, let me just do a quick search here. I think they have multiple wallet integrations, but I'm not sure what they built it on. Let me see if I can find that. But yeah, so that's pretty much it with IPFS. I don't know if I was able to answer any questions that you might have had about how this would work for FightPandemic.
Sorry, it was a bit patchy there for a moment, but I think that's a really good start for us to start asking the right questions. And I think we can probably have a look at running some trials to see if we can get the site hosted on IPFS and start using the technology and see how it's going to best fit with us.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. If you absolutely need help at any point, I am happy to help, happy to contribute, happy to do anything that I can to make this vision come to life.
Amazing. That's lovely.
Yeah, and I just want to say thanks very much for your time and also the presentation today, Sonia. It was really amazing. Would it be possible if you could share that slide deck with us, or is that private?
No, yeah, it's absolutely public. I can share it with you when we're done here.
That would be fantastic.
Awesome.
All right, and Sonia, what do you think about all the let's say pieces of the puzzle that we need in order to make this viable? Like, you know, we need to have the identity part, as you said, like probably $3. And how does it work with IPFS? Is that interoperable?
Yes, absolutely. The amazing thing with the services that are built on IPFS is that if you are also building on IPFS, then you get actual direct routing to this information yourself, because I'm not completely familiar with how Toolbox works, but what happens is if you're using it, for example, to create user profiles, what happens with the API, with the profiles API, is that every profile that's created on your service that uses Treebox then gets this information stored on IPFS itself. So if you were already building on IPFS, you could literally take a snippet of the code that makes this run and add it into your source code, and you have it directly on the IPFS network without having to go through a typewriter, for example.
All right. Okay, this sounds super exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if you look through the documentation or the source code, you'll probably find the snippet of the code that actually makes that work. And if you added that into your code, you will find that it works pretty much the same way. It's an amazing trick.
Awesome. Okay, so I guess we have a lot to study and and yeah, start implementing it.
Yeah, we'll be doing it. Lucky for me. Lucky for me, I have holidays coming up next week, so I know what I'll be doing on part of my holidays, right?
Okay, no, that's amazing. And you find that the community is very helpful. If at any point you have any problems, there's more than enough people who are absolutely willing to help you. We have different kinds of forums where you have people just willing to answer any questions that you may have in case you're having any trouble in the book process.
Awesome. How do we get hold of you if we need you, by the way?
Manu has me on Slack, easiest way to find me. But I'm also on Twitter. I can send him, he also has my email address, which you can also email me at any time. My email is constantly always open. And yeah, I try to respond within the day, but if I don't, then I can respond on the next day.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
No, I love this. I can't wait to see all the amazing things that you guys are going to do.
Thank you so much, Sonia. That's amazing. Thank you so much, Sonia. That's amazing.
Okay, I'll be off now.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks again, Sonia. Have a great day.
Thanks, Sonia.
All right, bye.
Bye. All right. Let me stop recording.